Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes for a few more people to log on. So if we can just bear with us for that time. Hopefully everybody can see the screen and hear my voice. And should we get any technical problems going through, which fingers crossed we won't, if it does collapse, then rest assured I'll send you the PowerPoint pretty quickly after the webinar finishes. So as I said, I'll just wait a couple of minutes. A few more logging in. Okay, if we make a start then. Good morning, everybody. First off, I'd like to apologise if anybody can hear a lawnmower going on in the background. It's not my lawn. Somebody has literally just started it going. So if you do hear it, apologies. There's absolutely nothing I can do other than shout at him out the window and say, please, could you stop? But I'm not going to do that. So welcome to today's webinar. My name is Paul Rowbottom. Most of you know who I am. I'm the Technical Advisor at City Guilds for Health, Care and Childcare. And today's webinar is an opportunity to touch base with you all and update you on where we are and the direction of travel, not just with qualifications, but obviously with apprenticeships. And you are all on mute, and my colleague Ken is monitoring any questions that will come at the end. We will open for Q&A at the end of the presentation because it's highly likely that if you do have any questions at this stage, I'm going to be covering those for you anyway. All right. And any questions we don't cover right at the end, I will make sure that we send out a Q&A with the answers to any questions that you've posed. So there's a lot to get through today. If you have a pen at hand, that would be helpful because I'm going to ask you to take down my telephone number in a minute, and I'll explain why. Because after today, I'm going to be offering you surgery times when, if there's anything in the webinar that you want more clarification on or want to discuss further, then you can give me a call on the mobile at the designated times. So if you have pens handy, that'd be great. Okay, so in terms of the agenda today, just to flag, the webinar isn't a substitute for reading the more detailed qualification guidance documents we have and other COVID-19 guidance documents. I will be referring those today, and part of today is really to make sure that you've got all the relevant information, that you're working from the current documentation, all right? And just a caveat there, the information I cover today is current at the point of delivery, and of course may be subject to change. So you'll see on the left-hand side the agenda. I'm going to take you through an update on some of the core qualifications. That's your diplomas 2, 3, 4 and 5. I need to update you on the apprenticeships and endpoint assessment. Those of you on the call today, on the webinar today, who are delivering the level 5 leadership and management qualification and apprenticeship, I just need to spend a little time talking to you about that. We will touch base very briefly on qualification mitigation. I mean, I did a webinar about 2.5 to 3 weeks ago. Some of you on the webinar today were listening to me then, where I covered mitigation in much more detail. If any of you on the call today who didn't have that presentation, drop me an email after this webinar and I will send it to you, or you can call me during the surgery times and we can update you further. I want to talk about EPA dispensation and the current requirements for endpoint assessment. Briefly touch base on functional skills. I'll say from the outset I'm not an expert on functional skills, so I will be referring you to 2 colleagues who do have that expertise should you have any further questions around functional skills and related assessments. I'll be touching on resources and support moving forward. Some of you may well still be considering becoming an independent endpoint assessor for apprenticeships, and I will again refer you to details with regard to that. And I do want to spend some time at the end of the webinar just touching base with you around some of the challenges and the risks moving forward in terms of qualification delivery, assessment, and anything that you're experiencing that you need Sitting Guilds to be aware of. We won't have time to explore that in great depth this morning, but we can talk more about that when you phone me, if you need to phone me, in the surgery times, which I'll alert you to later. Okay, so without further ado, if we move forward, there's the team. Most of you know the childcare, health and care team at Sitting Guilds. Geraldine Donworth on the left-hand side is the industry manager for the sector, and I'm in the middle, as you can see there, and my colleague Susie Gray, we're the technical advisors supporting Geraldine. I cover England, and my colleague Susie covers Northern Ireland, Wales and England. Probably at some point all of you on the call today will have touched base with us at some stage, but I flagged my mobile number there that you'll see in the middle. If you could make a note of that if you haven't already got that, because you will need that if you want to follow up in the surgery times after today, and give me a call. In terms of our functional skills team, all right, Paul Sini and Catherine Cooper, you'll see both of them on the screen. Those of you who are delivering functional skills with Sitting Guilds, if you have any queries,
Paul, sorry to interrupt. Your slides aren't moving.
Ah, since when?
We're all still stuck on the first slide.
Oh, really? Okay, let's see how we get on. That shouldn't be. Why is that? Bear with me, folks. Can you tell me if you see the screen now changing?
No.
Okay, that must be a problem. Why is that a problem? How about now, Ken?
No, we've still got the opening screen.
Great. Okay. So anything. Let me just close the screen down, folks. Hang on. That's a very good start, isn't it? Okay. How about now?
Yeah, so we can see PowerPoint.
Thank you for it. Okay. And now? First
screen.
Second?
Yeah, we're okay.
Right. Sorry, guys, about that. So apologies. That was, thank you for Ken. It's clicking my end, so I did forewarn about technical problems. But anyway, good to go. Ken, if that happens again, can you let me know, please?
Yeah, so, certainly. I thought it was just me, Paul.
No,
but then people started putting questions in.
So you'll see, please, could you take my mobile number down there, please? It is in the middle. Those of you who now have that screen, apologies again. I'll be referring to the surgeries later on in the webinar. So if you do need to contact me after today, so be it. So in terms of functional skills, as I mentioned, there's my two colleagues, Paul and Catherine. If, as I said, you're delivering functional skills with us and you need further support, then they are to be contacted. A great asset to the team in terms of their knowledge and experience around functional skills. I will touch on that later this morning, just to give you an update on where things are going in terms of assessment. Big thank you to all our EQAs. Now we've got some EQAs on the webinar today, so welcome to you all. Just to convey thanks from me and Susie and Geraldine and the team at Sitting Guilds for all the support you continue to provide with centres. It's greatly appreciated, and yeah, moving forward, happy to support you if needs be, if you've got any queries or questions coming from centres. So thank you. Just to remind everybody, could you please ensure that you are registered for email updates? Now, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, if you go onto our main web page, the link is at the top, bottom right hand corner, you'll see a tab that says email updates, and there's a screenshot on the screen for you there. That's basically our way of communicating directly with you in relation to any qualification updates, any other information we need you to be aware of in terms of products and services. If you're receiving email updates and it applies to, for example, building services, plumbing, dog grooming, all right, then obviously you've clicked the wrong button when you've registered with us. So what you can do is go back in and look at the menu that will come up in terms of your own email address, and you can make any amends or update your prescription to the details that you want. So please do that. Those people in teams who haven't yet registered for email updates, could you please ensure that you do that as soon as possible? So I want to move on to the core qualifications to start with, and then we'll move on to apprenticeships. So in terms of our core qualifications, I just want to make sure that everybody is working from the current handbooks. In other words, the versions that are currently on the websites. So the level 2 diploma in care, you should be working from version 2.1 June 2020. If you've got any other version in front of you, previous versions, please bin that and start with an updated version. Now, if any of you haven't had a look in anything that's updated in terms of handbooks, in terms of version control, normally within the first 2 or 3 pages, you'll see the amendments that have been made. So that will save you rooting through the whole handbook, trying to find what on earth the changes have been. So please make sure you're working from 2.1. Level 3 diploma in adult care, you need to be working from handbook version 3.2. So these were published last month for level 2 and level 3. And I've had a number of inquiries from centres asking, will the 422234 level 4 diploma in adult care be extended? Wool Garden is currently showing end registrations 31st of August. I can assure you and guarantee that that qualification will be extended. Because of things that have been happening, obviously, over the last few months, there's been a delay in updating Wool Garden, but please rest assured that the level 4 is being extended. So it's business as usual with that, and you should be working from handbook version 2.2 September 18. And finally, those of you delivering the level 5, new level 5 diploma in leadership and management in adult care for England, qualification code 308050. Now, that isn't a new qualification now. It's actually will be 2 years old next month. It was launched in August 18. The current handbook is May 19 version 2, okay? But a new revised handbook is coming, and that should be up on the website, I want to say in the next few weeks, but certainly in August you'll see the new handbook coming out at the latest. And I will talk a little bit more about what's been changed in there as we go through today's webinar. Okay, if you want to know about any further qualifications that we offer in health and social care, then all you need to do is go onto our website. Some of you are familiar with what you see on the screen now. Click on the link at the top, and that will take you down through into the red tabs, as you'll see on the left-hand side, as to all the qualifications we offer in our portfolio area. But keep checking, please, on Wool Garden that the registration and certification dates for each qualifications are still current, because some of the ones you'll see listed under those red tabs are now closed for registrations, but may well still be open for certification. So that's the bit you need to check. There's the link at the top. So moving on to apprenticeships, which is the core of today's webinar and endpoint assessment. Where are we, where are we going, and what's happening with particularly the assessment post-gateway? So many of you on the call today will be delivering, or have been delivering, these 2 apprenticeships for quite a while now. They're still there, still current. The adult care worker at level 2 and the lead adult care worker at level 3. I've put the links to those standards either side of the blue tab bars, as you'll see. Please, I know it's happening, but please, those of you who are delivering apprenticeships, make sure that when the apprentice is signed up for their apprenticeship, that the employer and the apprentice has a copy of the standard and the associated assessment plan, and that's gone through line by line in detail with them at the start of the apprenticeship. So everybody's clear on the skills, knowledge and behaviours that has to be covered, and the component parts of endpoint assessment and how that works. Okay, so those links are there for you. They're not new, they're on the Institute for Apprenticeship and Technical Education website, but if you haven't got them, please look at those standards and endpoint assessment, particularly if you're a new starter to the apprenticeship world. The level 4 lead practitioner in adult care apprenticeship, that is published. It came out in March this year. I'll talk more a little bit about that later on, but the standard is there, as is the associated assessment plan. It's live. Okay, some of you might be looking to deliver that already, have started to deliver that, but again, the link will take you through to the standard. So the same applies, please. If you've got apprentices starting on that apprenticeship, please make sure that they have a copy of the standard and the associated assessment plan. Right, level 5, leader in adult care apprenticeship and assessment plan. Similarly, Okay, that was updated February this year. It's good to go, it's live, and I'll talk more about the content of that in the EPA in a minute. I'm sure many of you are looking now to start delivering that. If you haven't delivered it or started delivering it already, but there's a lot to cover in that standard, and the mandatory on-program qualification that we have available is the Level 5 Diploma in Leadership and Management, which I'll talk about now. But please make sure staff are very aware, assessors are very aware of the requirements of the standard and the assessment plan, as are the apprentices and related employers. So an overview currently, as of today, in terms of where we are with endpoint assessment. Left-hand side is the name of the standard. Right-hand side are the EPA codes that City and Guilds have for those apprenticeship standards. They're not new, the EPA codes for adult care worker and lead adult care worker, and I know many of you on the webinar today have had great successes with endpoint assessment and your apprentices, so congratulations to them. As an aside, if any of you have got any case studies that you have for any of your apprentices who've gone through EPA successfully, please get in touch, because City and Guilds is always looking for case studies of successes, and we're happy to take those from you. But I'm happy to talk more about that and the details of what we're looking for and photos, etc. If you speak to me after today. The Level 4 Lead Practitioner in Adult Care. Yes, the standard and assessment plan is published. City and Guilds, it's on its radar. It's on our radar to look at EPA for that standard, and if we make the decision to proceed, the proposed launch date for that will be latterly in 2021. I can't be more specific at this stage, but as the year goes by, I'll probably be able to update you more on dates for that standard. Now, the leader in adult care, level 5, as I said, mentioned before, the standard and assessment plan is published. The launch date for us for EPA registrations will be December this year, okay, and will be open for EPA bookings, the actual bookings to take place from July 2021. Now, that would mean that in December this year, we're ready to go with all the resource materials to support you, the EPA packs, any Word documents for recording forms that we need to produce for you. But I will be alerting you to an event that I, fingers crossed, will be running, to be confirmed face-to-face later on in the year, subject to the City and Guilds offices opening. But I'll talk more about that later on, where centres can come for a whole day and have a support workshop around that new apprenticeship standard and the qualification within it. So, SAFE frameworks, many of you are delivering, or have been delivering, obviously, the leadership management SAFE frameworks for a number of years now. All of you probably know this, that framework closes this month, 31st of July 2020, it does close down. No further registrations for that after that date. The mandatory qualification within that, as you all know, was the 4978 Level 5 Leadership in Health and Social Care and Children and People Services England. And the complexes within that qualification below, you'll see 51 is closed, 53 is closed, 52 is extended until 31st December 2021, and 54, 55 and 56 complexes, we are keeping those open until December 2020, just in case we get any late registrations. But and I know some of you deliver the framework or have been delivering the framework, and others of you just deliver the qualification in its own right. But the framework closes this month, but I'm sure you're all fully aware of that. The new Level 5 Leader in Care Apprenticeship is a busy standard. If you've had a look at it already, there's a lot of skills, a lot of knowledge, lots of behaviours to cover within there. I won't go through in detail what's up on the screen now, but basically that's the role profile outline for this standard in terms of what the apprentices will be expected to do. No surprises, I don't think, in terms of the responsibilities that a manager would have in adult care services. And the standard per se, if you've looked at it, covers in more detail what the role profile is for those apprentices who do that standard. Now, the mandatory on-programme qualification is the City and Guilds Level 5 Diploma in Leadership Management, 308050. As I said earlier, that qualification has been delivered for, since September 18. and I know several of you have been delivering that as a freestanding qual. That said, those of you looking to deliver the new apprenticeship, this will be the mandatory on-programme requirement. Those of you who have been delivering the 497, 854 and 55 will get automatic approval to deliver that qualification. GLH, probably about approximately 395, and TQT 800. So the level 5 diploma, I do need to spend just a little bit of time on that with you this morning. It's a brand new qualification. There are 11 mandatory units and 7 optional units that need to be achieved. So everybody would need to undertake 18 units. The qualification is built on criteria issued to all awarding bodies by Skills for Care, and social care managers in the social care sector designed it, built it, and it was also supported by some of our consultants. Now, if you are delivering this, please give yourself time to unpack the units. There, you may start looking at the screen or the handbook and start thinking, well, that unit title is the same. Well, it may well be the same or similar to what you're used to. However, the content isn't. And there have been lots of changes to the content, refreshing, updating. And there are some new units, particularly in the optional bank, that some of you have never delivered before. And as part of your review of the qualification, you will need to do a skill scan, skill audit on your assessors, your teams, who's occupationally competent and knowledgeable to deliver the unit requirements. And it may well be that some assessors have to undertake CPD to ensure that they are up to speed with the content. And there is one unit in terms of business development, in terms of adult care services. It's an optional unit running a business. So it may well be that you're needing to look elsewhere if you've got apprentices who want to do that optional unit as part of the qualification. So in terms of elsewhere, you may be looking for somebody else within your own departments, within your colleges, who've got the skills and expertise to deliver that unit. The thing to remember, though, is mapping. If you are delivering this standard with this mandatory qualification, it's making sure that you cover the skills, knowledge and behaviours of the standard. Now, whilst the qualification is there, okay, and does support the standard content, making sure that you deliver the standard is the priority for EPA, because the EPA itself assesses the standard. It doesn't assess the qualification. Now, I've done a mapping document which maps the qualification, the level 5 diploma, to the new Leader in Adult Care standard. Now, that's going to be published hopefully at the same time as the qualification handbook, new handbook. And you'll see when you read that document where there are some gaps. Okay, it does map well to the standard. Okay, be reassured, but there are a few gaps. So when that mapping document is published, and it will be part of our EPA resources, also on Smart Screen as well, please have a look at it and make sure that you're comfortable where those gaps are, because those gaps would need to be filled in terms of the standard. So the handbook, as I said earlier, is going to be updated. All right, it's been refreshed. Geraldine and I have been working on that over the last couple of months. And there have been tweaks to content to bring it up to currency in terms of some areas. And we've also improved some of the clarity on a unit by unit basis on the assessment methods which are required for each of the units within the qual. And those of you who've seen it will be comfortable with seeing that the layout is quite different in terms of units to level 2 and level 3 diploma, but we've reintroduced performance criteria into that qualification. So hopefully that will make it a lot easier for you. And as I said previously, please assess the CPD needs of any assessors to ensure they do have that occupational competence and knowledge to be able to deliver and assess the new units. So in terms of EPA for the level 5, the standard is clear in that it's saying that it's typically delivered, the on-programme requirement is around 18 months, and then endpoint assessment comes on top of that. So the EPA is not included in the 18 months. Okay, so when you're thinking about your delivery, your planning, working with your apprentices who will be doing this stand, make sure that they're clear that endpoint assessment is after that typical duration. 20% off the job training, that hasn't changed. All right, that's pre-gateway on program. It is working with the apprentices to plan, to map the number of hours that constitutes 20% off the job training. Forgive me for teaching running to Sake, because everybody delivering apprenticeship should know what the off the job training involves and what you're allowed to do. But one of the requirements pre-gateway for this standard is they have to achieve the qualification level 5, Maths and English or have the equivalent of, and then they go through gateway and move into endpoint assessment. Now for this standard, those of you delivering it will see that there's an observation in endpoint assessment. You don't get that at level 2 and level 3, but you've got it now at level 5. And that observation of leadership will be 60 minutes by the IEPA. All right, and our guidance documents will give you more detail in relation to the examples that could include, and that observation will include a minimum of 4 set open questions by the independent endpoint assessor, and after that there'll be a one-to-one Q&A on the same day after the observation, which is approximately 15 minutes. Now the assessment plan is saying that observation could be undertaken virtually or face-to-face. But if you think time-wise, if any of you register apprentices on that standard in September, then you'd be looking at 2022 for EPA. So that's quite a long way off. Okay, but those of you perhaps registered from day one when the standard assessment plan was launched, you are probably looking back end of next year, all right, 2020. So that's one part of endpoint assessment, the observation of leadership. The second part, and is a separate assessment, it's not linked to the observation, is a professional discussion, and that would last approximately an hour, give or take 10%. So in terms of the grading for the level 5, you don't have a merit. You have fail, pass, or distinction. And what you see on the screen has come directly from the assessment plan. And obviously per component part, the observation is fail or pass, and the professional discussion is fail, pass, or distinction. And the final EPA grade is calculated on the successful achievement of both those components. Right, so I mentioned earlier about a workshop day, centre support day, that I would like to be able to run. Who knows? There are a number of you already booked onto this. It's on our Eventbrite platform, which is still open, and I've given you the link at the top. So if you are delivering the level 5, please book on. All right, nobody knows what the future is going to hold in terms of social space, social distancing, office openings, etc., etc. But this is planned for November. Now, if this changes in terms of access to offices or any flare-ups with COVID-19 or anything else and lockdown, then I will be doing a one-day support webinar. Now, I have done one-day webinars before for CPD events. They do work well. But rest assured there'll be plenty of breaks through the day. So at this stage, please just book on the link above if your IQA assessors want to come along. And if there are any changes, then I will be running a day webinar as we're doing now. So again, not to forget, please, the ESFA launched guidance in March 19 around assessment of prior learning for your apprenticeships. I'm not going to go into the great detail now about this because I have to assume that those delivering apprenticeships will have read this guidance and are comfortable with the processes and procedures that have to take place. The point now is I did cover this in the face-to-face network events that we ran last year. So you've got the links here to remind yourselves in the event you need to update, refresh, revisit the guidance for prior learning. Sitting Guilds launched its best practice guide to the assessment of prior learning last year, excuse me, and the link on the right of your screen will give you the link straight through to that guide. I hope most of you downloaded that already. If you came to my networks, we did talk about this previously, as we did a webinar, which I'll talk about in a minute. One of the points I have taken out of that guidance from the SFA is up on the screen now. It's not new, but it is important to remember, okay, why you're doing the initial assessment of prior learning, okay, and that then in turn will dictate the eligibility of an apprentice to do an apprenticeship, or the amount of on-programme learning that still needs to be covered based on the outcomes of your prior learning assessment. And this applies to standards and frameworks. Okay, so it doesn't just apply to your, excuse me, to your standards. And this is something that centres are audited on from the ESFA. Some of you may have already had an audit, but this is something they will be looking at. So just please familiarise yourself with the requirements on the screen now, the link at the bottom, our best practice guide, and our Senior Manager for Funding and Policy, Bryony Kingsland, did a webinar and a video recording of best practice in prior learning assessment, which is available to watch as well, as it has been. And I know several of you have already looked at that last year, but this is just to repeat that these resources are available for you to have a look at. Right, qualification mitigation. Goodness me, difficult times at the moment. Now, I ran a webinar on the 18th of June around mitigation. The point of today is to ensure that those of you who listen to that have got all the relevant documentation, etc., to follow. Those of you who didn't, I hope would have already accessed the documentation on our COVID-19 website in relation to that. And if you want to listen to the recording of that webinar, which I've did, then please just click on the link at the bottom there. And you'll be able to hear that. If you need the PowerPoint slide deck that I used for that webinar, please drop me an email or phone in and I'll send it to you. Email's probably better because I can respond that way, but I will send it to you. Those of you who were on the webinar will have had all that, or should have had all that already. The video that I would also bring your attention to was undertaken by one of our colleagues. It's very useful to look at how mitigation has occurred, why it's occurred, and the types of mitigation that's been applied to the qualifications in terms of calculation, in terms of adaptation, in terms of delay. If your teams aren't still fully aware of that, please have a look at that video. It's very clear. It's not very long, it's only about 15 minutes, but it is a good backdrop to the mitigation requirements. And in terms of health and care, there is a separate documentation available on the website for childcare. This is the version you should be working from. If you haven't downloaded that, that's an immediate action point, please, after today. The link is at the top. Scroll down to the red tab, Health and Social Care, and you'll download the blue document on the right-hand side, which covers all our qualifications and what's been allowed under mitigation for each qualification, which must be looked at in its own right in terms of qualification by qualification. And to be clear for everybody, the learners that are in scope for that mitigation, that's the criteria on the screen now. They're not new. The key thing there is that your mitigation will apply to any learner who was incomplete or still registered on their qualification from 20th of March this year and was scheduled to complete their qualification by the 31st of July. Now, the questions that were being asked now, and colleagues on the call will be sure to agree with me, is that 31st of July date going to be extended? As of today, I can't answer that. We've got no further updates on that. But if an extension occurs, then no doubt Sitting Guilds will notify you. But currently, the scope is up on the screen. So several of you have contacted me since that webinar. We've talked about some of your learners, and many of you have been able to apply adaptation where required on a qualification by qualification basis. Others of you have quite rightly undertaken your audits on your candidates, on your learners, and found that actually, despite mitigation, you are delaying certification because the evidence just isn't there, or it's just not attainable in the way we've provided guidance on. So case by case basis, but making sure please that you do have the relevant documentation is really important. And all claims for those learners in scope must be submitted to Sitting Guilds by the 30th of September this year. Okay, and there's guidance on our website in terms of the EQA and IQA responsibilities for all those learners where scope has been applied, where mitigation has been applied. Learners out of scope, again, I covered this at the webinar, previous webinar, but basically it's very clear on the screen, the guidance is very clear, and something that I will need to touch base with you at the end about getting some feedback from you about how things are going in terms of assessment, access to workplaces, you know, what's going on in your areas, how assessment is being developed, what alternative assessment methods are you engaging with in terms of particular and expert witness testimonies, etc. And that's something I'll touch base on later on. But there is clearly guidance on learners that are in scope and learners that are not in scope. So please make sure that's followed. Now, in terms of dispensation, this relates to endpoint assessment during the COVID-19 period. And again, we've provided lots of information to centres around dispensation through EPA, which I just want to revisit to make sure everybody's clear on what happens here with the level 2 and the level 3 apprenticeships. The guidance for COVID-19, it's very detailed, easy to access on our website. When you click on our website, you'll see that blue tab immediately come up. Most of you, I hope, have seen that. You know, if you click on the red tab, it will take you through to more guidance around endpoint assessment, which is crucial that you keep your eye on that for any updates. The FAQ guidance is very clear, and this is where you'll find further guidance around health and social care. There is guidance on remote testing for the Evolve assessment, so that's the MCQ requirement of the EPA. And also, I do know that some of you are now returning to your centres and undertaking assessments face-to-face, and that's a good step, good thing to have happen based on health and safety and COVID-19 regulations, etc. for the nations wherever you work. That said, we've issued new guidance to you where you are returning to face-to-face. So you'll need to have a look at that. On the right-hand side, the links and the information there as to what we're expecting and what we require. Okay, so please, if you haven't looked at that, please do so in the event you are returning to face-to-face assessments. So in terms of adult care, the guidance for EPA dispensations for level 2 and level 3 are clear in the FAQ guidance. The tab you're looking for in the FAQ guidance is at the bottom there. If you scroll down, you'll see a red tab that says 31st of March, adult care and lead adult care standards dispensation. That's where you give the information where we are now, okay, and it hasn't changed. So for those of you delivering the level 2 and level 3 apprenticeships, the EPA requirements through dispensation currently, and they haven't changed, okay, are on the left-hand side. So on program for your level 2 and level 3 apprenticeships, every apprentice needs to meet the 15 standards of the care certificate. That hasn't changed. Neither has the achievement of the level 2 and level 3 diploma. As normal, applying adaptations for those apprentices who are within scope. The literacy and numeracy or math and English functional skills calculated as part of the mitigation process, okay, that has, hopefully all of you have followed that requirement for functional skills. If you haven't, then please contact Paul and Catherine, who I mentioned earlier, but the calculator results have been submitted now. By now they're all in, and we are returning to normal assessment for literacy and numeracy and functional skills from August the 1st. Now again, please contact Catherine and Paul if you've got any queries or questions around that. The next requirement for Gateway is the self-assessment for all apprentices. You know we've provided you with a template for that, always have done. That remains as normal. So apprentices will have to do that self-assessment. No change. The thing that has changed though is the witness testimonies. So everybody delivering apprenticeships will know we've required 2 witness testimonies at Gateway for which informs the professional discussion. That requirement has been suspended until further notice. And the guidance remains the same. There are no changes to that currently. the external quality assurance body that monitors the apprenticeships in care is called NSAR. And for those of you who want to have a look at them, just Google NSAR and you find out what they do. They're the regulator for these standards, working with the IFA Institute for Apprenticeships. They've issued that guidance during COVID-19 dispensation period, which still applies. And the other change on the right-hand side of your screen is that the situational judgment test, whether it be undertaken remotely or face-to-face in your centre locations, can now be taken in any order with a professional discussion, because previously you had to take the judgment test first and then proceed to the PD. That has now changed, okay? But you still are responsible to manage the situational judgment test, the MCQ. Functional skills, it is what it is. I think I've touched on that already. Full assessment does return from next month. Guidance is up on the screen. I think it's all very clear. Your level 2 apprentices haven't been required to sit the level 2 functional skills English and maths assessments as part of their standard on programme requirement. But that said, fingers crossed things will return to normal. But if any further guidance, then please contact my colleagues. No changes. The standards are very clear on what's required in terms of maths and English. Now, some of you may have engaged already in the evolved testing for the MCQs for your EPA remotely. They can be done within the apprentice's home, okay, or within the employer setting, okay, but comes with that mandatory requirements. Be interested to see how many of you have done that at a later stage, so any information you've got on that would be gratefully appreciated in terms of feedback. And the exam guidance for remote assessment and the technology required for remote assessment is clear. We've had the guidance out now for several months in relation to that. Excuse me. But if you are looking to deliver it remotely, continue to deliver the remote testing, then there is guidance on the website, clear guidance as to the process you need to follow for at-home testing. And on the right-hand side, there's the link to clear guidance on delivering testing within the employer site. Okay, so it's remotely either at home or within the employer premises. So please, if you haven't seen that, have a look after today. Now, if you have returned to face-to-face assessment, so in other words, you're doing the MCQs back in the college or back in your training centre, then City and Guilds requires you to complete an online declaration form. The declaration form process you'll see on the link in front of you. Please click onto that, complete the form, follow it through, and submit as required. Okay, we need to know that you're returning to face-to-face assessments for those apprentices. So whoever's responsible for that in your centres, please, it may not be you on the webinar today, please make sure they are aware of this and that they follow the guidance we've provided for you. Nearly there, folks. In terms of resources and support, everybody who's delivering EPA with City and Guilds should know that the Smart Screen resource that we have provides you with a number of resources on a standard by standard basis. For adult care, you should all be accessing the Endpoint assessment pack, the related Endpoint assessment recording forms. There is an exemplar situational judgment test, and there are lead independent endpoint assessor national reports. Now, please look at those. They come out they used to come out every 6 months. They're coming out 12 monthly now. And please make sure you look at those. They are kind of like examiners' reports, but they're not called that. But they're very much a summary of the findings that the lead independent assessors have found based on the endpoint assessments that have taken place with your apprentices. So we'll highlight, for example, best practice, good practice that they're seeing, and highlight areas that further development needs to take place. So they're all housed on Smart Screen. As soon as you register your apprentices with City and Guilds for endpoint assessment, you should automatically get access to those resources. A link will be sent through to your presumably your exams departments or whoever's made the EPA registration, and you'll be able to set up for the access for yourselves as assessors or IQAs, and also access for your apprentices, particularly for the Smart Screen preparation tool and the exemplar professional discussion audio transcripts for the level 2 and the level 3. These materials are not new, they've been here for a while now, but it's just touching base to make sure that you're all accessing those. And if you're not, then please make sure you contact me or the EPA support team to make sure that you are. But most of you will also have a business manager assigned to your centre who can also provide support as well. 4 people, 5 people you'll see now named on the screen. Depending on where you're based, we have a team supporting you folks around the endpoint assessment. Some of you may well have touched base with them already. The new addition to the team is Maurice Hull, who's covering the Southwest. Their role is to provide support and guidance around anything to do with the EPA journey. That's from registration through to booking, okay, and liaising through with our EPA support team. Or if you have any other problems with EPA bookings or registrations, the telephone number is up on the screen for you as well. But those guys on the screen now will field queries, just drop them an email, and they'll support you via webinars or phone calls or whatever they need, and will help you through that process. We want to try and make this obviously as seamless for you as possible. But if you're new to working with City and Guilds around EPA, and this whole journey is something that you've never experienced before, then you may need additional support or guidance to make sure you're just following all our requirements. So they are a great asset to the team, and please use them and please contact them if you need to. Again, other support contacts on the screen. I'm not going to go through this for you, but again, those are the support numbers for you there. I've given you Susie, Geraldine, and my support email addresses and telephone number for me. Contact us at any time. I know many of you do, others of you prefer just to have a one-to-one discussion with us. That's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. Happy to support where we can. And if we don't know the answers to your questions, we will inevitably know somebody in the organisation who will. Finally, around apprenticeships, if none of you have seen the certificates post EPA achievement for your apprentices, here they are up on the screen. You do get 2. One is from City and Guilds, which is a statement of achievement. So when the EPA results are conferred, in other words, your apprentice has passed all the requirements and the final grade is conferred, you will get the certificate in the middle. It's very useful because it breaks down the component parts of endpoint assessment and gives you the grade per component part. And once we've conferred our results, we notify the Institute for Apprenticeships, who will issue their certificate, which is on the right-hand side. My only caveat around the one on the right is that that will go to the apprentice's employer. I think most of you know that already. It doesn't go to the training provider. So I think once EPA is completed, please make sure, it's just a reminder that to tell your apprentices that their apprenticeship final certificate will go to their employer. So it's making sure that, you know, when you do your booking, because you need to let us know who their employers are, that's where the certificate will be sent. So it's making sure the apprentice is aware of that so they can chase that once that certificate comes through. And it normally, under normal circumstances, I can't comment about how long it takes under COVID-19 period, but it normally takes around 3, 4, 5 weeks to come through once we've conferred the result with the Institute for Apprentices. So the apprentice is getting 2. You would ordinarily keep the middle one for your records, but you must pass that through to the apprentice. It's their property, not yours. But the reason you would keep the middle one is obviously to confer achievement for your apprentices, but you don't see the one on the right. Other resources we've got for you, going down very well, these 3. These are the textbooks we've launched, and they're not new, the level 2 and level 3, well, the level 5, they're all out, up and running. They are a very good resource, not just for you as assessors, but also for your apprentices. And those of you who I know are delivering the level 5 already in terms of the qualification, many of you have told me you've accessed the leadership management textbook, and feedback on all 3 has been really very good. And some of the visits I used to be doing at centres, when I used to pop into the college libraries, you'd see at least 20 copies of some of these sat on the shelves, which is really good. They are a very good resource. So if you haven't got one, have a look and buy. The links there will take you through to Amazon, and you'll be able to purchase them online. Some of you have joined the LinkedIn Adult Support Group, Apprenticeship Support Group, which I have been running now for about 18 months. I think we've got about 80 members so far. If you are all in LinkedIn and you haven't joined, it's open to assessors, quality managers, IQAs, EQAs, please join. It's my way of additionally getting to you guys to communicate information and relevant things. Please join, log in, there's the link, and I will accept you. And then I start posting information on that site for you to see that's relevant to anything to do with the apprenticeships. Moving forward, right, we're nearly there. I said that about 5 minutes ago, didn't I? Apologies, but we are nearly there. We're still looking for lead independent endpoint assessors or independent endpoint assessors for our adult care standards. And obviously we're going to be recruiting for the level 5 leader in adult care. And if you are interested or want to find out more on the role of an independent assessor or the lead independent assessment role, I've given you the link there. It takes you straight through to our website, and it will take you through to the role profiles for the LEPAs and IEPAs. I flagged up there for the leader in adult care, but the guidance is all there for the adult care and lead adult care worker. You can apply to be an IEPA subject and a LEPA for subject to meeting the criteria to be, which is all on the role profiles. And you can do that on a standard by standard basis. So, you know, we've got some IEPAs who do level 2 and level 3. We may have some who just do level 2, and we may have some who just do level 3. But we will be recruiting now for the level 5. All right. So again, anybody on the court, if you know of anybody who'd be interested, have a look at the role profile, please. Now, moving forward, goodness me, difficult times for everybody. I think from a City and Guilds perspective, what we'd like to hear is some of the challenges that you're experiencing or have been experiencing over the last few months, and moving forward, some of the challenges that you envisage happening between now and Christmas, in fact, beyond that. My colleagues have already been alerted to some of the challenges you're facing in terms of access. Certainly if you're delivering our technical qualifications, access to work placements for students may not even happen till January 2021, if at the earliest. So it may well be not at all next year for a good 6 months into next year. But we do need to hear from you. Okay, so not today, but if you could drop me an email, or when I flag the surgery times in a minute, if you can, we can have a discussion about what your centred challenges are. Some of those might be about recruitment. It doesn't just have to be about access and assessment. It could be recruitment challenges that you're facing with apprentices. It could be challenges with just the buy-in to freestanding qualifications. You may have some challenges around adaptation. And as I said, at the moment, the adaptations only apply to the 31st of July this year. There's no extension on that as of today. Obviously, we're picking up problems you're having with access to work placements quite rightly in work practice environments, and that in turn has a knock-on effect on observations of practice. More expert witnesses, yeah, at the moment you're having to source more who meet the criteria to be, but this is not about now necessarily, it's about moving forward. Are these challenges still in place? And I know some of you have sought more guidance on the role of the expert witness. I've had a number of discussions with several centres around this, not just in terms of the mandatory requirements to be, but in terms of template completion, what's a good expert witness testimony look like, the detail, how does that then talk directly to the units, etc., etc. But I think Geraldine, myself and Susie would need to get a feel of how we can support you moving forward, not just in the next 6 months, but over the next year, 18 months. So not for today's discussion, but I would like, if you can give me a call at some point, we can have an informal chat about this. And basically, it's for us to help us start thinking about how we move forward to support you guys in both in terms of apprenticeship and qualification delivery. That said, here we go, surgery support. So I've given you my telephone number at the beginning. Apologies for the technical difficulties then, but there's my telephone number again, mobile number. If you can and want to give me a call to talk about anything that we've covered today, by all means do, or talk about risks, challenges moving forward, then I'm available on the dates on the screen in front of you. So 9th of July, which is tomorrow, 16th of July and the 21st of July, in those times. So I've set aside times for you to call me. That did work really well. Last time after the mitigation webinar, I had a similar process, and several of you phoned through, which was great. We could have a chat for some clarifications. And those of you who are delivering health apprenticeships and endpoint assessment, there is a separate webinar next week. So that's Wednesday, 15th of July. I know many of you have already booked on that already, but those of you who didn't know about that and would like to join us next week, I'll be covering similar things, but different things, because obviously EPA for the health apprenticeships, and by health apprenticeships, I mean the healthcare support worker, senior healthcare support worker, nursing support option, and the assistant practitioner apprenticeships. There are obviously different dispensation requirements there. Okay, so if you want to join that, there's the link for you. And finally, my colleague at Sitting Girls, Bryony Kingsland, launched yesterday a webinar that she's running on the 14th of July. Now, this is in response to the post-budget speech, which is taking place today. I'm sure you've all heard about that on the news. Bryony is going to be doing a follow-up webinar looking at the benefits of the outcomes of that for the FE sector. So it may well be that comms has arrived with you already within your centres. Whoever's on your contact list for us will have had a notification of that. But if you haven't had that or haven't received it as yet, I've given you the link to join that webinar next week. So if you are working in the FE sector and you're on the webinar today, it would be useful if you've got time to perhaps have a listen into what Bryony's saying, okay? And finally, around health, because I'm conscious there are people on the webinar today who deliver the healthcare apprenticeship standards. A survey was launched last week via Skills for Health to provide them with feedback on the 3 standards that I've referred to in my previous slide. Those of you delivering the healthcare support level 2, 3 or 5, they want feedback from you on how that's happening, what's been your experience in terms of delivering those standards and endpoint assessment, and the survey is out. So some of you may have already completed that already, but if not, the deadline for that is next week, so you've got a few more days to go, and the link to that survey, if you want to take part or pass it to colleagues who do deliver health apprenticeships, is on the slide at the bottom. You'll see the blue link to the survey. And that's it. So from me, I have no idea what time it is, apologies for that. So open to the floor for any questions, where Ken will pick this up with me now. Hopefully there aren't too many, because I think once you receive this deck, and I will get this out to you hopefully within the next hour and a half today on the emails that you've provided me, have a look through, clock those surgery times, please, that I've alerted you to. Give us a call, all right, or drop me an email, either way, but call is always very often the better way, because you may have more questions than an email can address, and I'm happy to speak to you tomorrow or the other dates later on over next week and the week after. So Ken, anything your end?
I've just got a couple. They're both from Vanessa Ackford. So the first question she's got, is there going to be another example for the situational judgment test anytime soon?
The immediate answer to that is no, there won't be. We've only ever provided one exemplar. Centres have designed their own exemplars based on the standards, which we do encourage and we would recommend. But Sitting Girls, no, we would normally only provide you with one exemplar test paper.
And the second question she had is, excellent textbooks, but when is there going to be a level 4 or residential childcare level 3 and level 5?
Oh, good question. Not in the immediate future, I'm sorry. We develop resources based on volumes and demand. But that said, if there is a demand, we need to hear about that. So Vanessa, if you can drop emails through, or anybody else listening today in that same position, if you can drop us an email and we can pass that through to Geraldine and colleagues to have a look at for you. But it is currently, resources currently in terms of those textbooks are developed and designed on a demand basis, so in terms of volumes. And Sitting Girls quite right, other organisations have to do business cases to merit and justify the investment for that. So I'm not ignoring you, but I would need information from centres as to the need, demand. Send them through, and that will be compiled and go through to Geraldine for her consideration.
Vanessa said she will send you an email. Also, Jane Ward has put her email address in the questions, just to make sure we've got the right one for that. Let me just scroll down to see if there's
Jane's still listening. Jane, if anything crashes with the technology, I'm just covering all eventuality now, and I can't access that later on, could you please drop me an email? Okay, and I've got your email, and I can make sure you've got it. But everybody today should be getting this presentation. I'm hoping to get it out within the next hour and a half, 2 hours, so look out for it in your inboxes.
And that's all we have. There is a thank you from Susan Kemp, by the way.
Well, thanks, Suzanne. Lovely to hear from you, and hope you well. Okay, well, that concludes today. Some of you will touch base next week. Again, reiteration to everybody, thanks for everything. Congratulations to all your learners and your apprentices who've achieved, and wish them best of luck moving forward in their next destinations. Thanks again to the EQAs who've been on this webinar today. Really do appreciate your support and your help. But hopefully speak to some of you tomorrow in the surgeries and/or next week or the week after. But we're all here to help. If I go back on the screen to those surgery times, if you didn't jot them down, as I said, you'll get this through in the next couple of hours and speak to you on those dates in July. Otherwise, have a lovely day. Stay safe, everybody. Take care, and best wishes from all of us at City and Guilds. Thank you to Ken.
Welcome.